Hey everyone, Tech Priest Fred here with yet another deep dive video. This time we will be taking a closer look at one of the starter characters in the game that I have been dissing in my previous video, Certus, the Ultramarines Eliminator Sergeant. I wanted to quickly say before we start that preparing this video damaged my psyche and gave me nightmares, so I hope that it was worth it. As mentioned in the previous video, Certus has lots of cons and barely any pros right now, so let's try to go over him and his kit step by step, just like in my previous Boss Gulgord's deep dive video, which is: what are his strong points? What are his weak points? What requirements does he meet for legendary release events? Is it worth it to invest into him just for that? What synergies does he have now, and how can we make him useful with other characters that we have in the game? So, first of all, what are his strong points? The first good thing about him is that you get him for free, which is a nice thing in itself, but it's not that nice in the long run, since most of the players will quickly abandon upgrading him further. The second thing that is good for him is that his stats are, well, not bad at all. The base stats include health, armor and damage, and they are kinda close to other snipers that we have in the game right now. Right on the screen you can see a quick comparison between Certus, Calandis, Sarquel and Shosil. And now we have to get to his bad points in order to understand why he isn't viable. The first weak point of Certus is that while his stats are somewhat close to other snipers, the devil lays in the details here. You see, every other sniper has around the same or little better stats, but they get complemented with additional things. Calandis has 3 movement, deals lots of crit damage that inflates her effective damage per shot, making her better at doing damage from range. Shosil, while having 2 movement only, it is a problem mostly when you can't get to the high ground to get the sweet 50% damage bonus. Thankfully, Shosil kinda skips this step, since his drones can spawn on the high ground for him and benefit from it despite Shosil not having a high ground, which makes his 2 movement way easier to tolerate. He also gets a better version of Certus active, since in order for Certus to match Shosil's active damage, he must have the heavy weapons trait activated, and in the meantime, Shosil can just mark a guy 5 hexes away from him and stay relatively safe, and the only counterplay being Shosil being killed before his nuke drops on your head, so yeah. And on top of all those things, Shosil's big damage numbers are also supported by high pierce ratio, which makes him a very versatile sniper unit that can both one-shot squishes with a raw damage number, plus can potentially crit and can deal a lot of damage to big tanks thanks to his high pierce ratio. Last on our comparison list is Sarquel, who is basically Certus 2.0 in the Imperial ranks in my opinion. He has more health than him, more armor, slightly less damage, which is compensated by way higher pierce ratio, has 3 movement like Calandis, and his active does almost the same damage to the main target, while also heavily damaging the enemies behind him. And of course, we could say that Certus active potentially does more damage to the main target thanks to his 50% boost from heavy weapon, but come on, that's like saying that Incisus can heal better than Isabella because the enemy can hit you only once. It can happen, but we take it as a miracle by chance, not something that will be taken for granted. Let's be honest, even Sarquel's passive is better at defense than Certus, somehow, because double overwatch on such a potent damage dealer is no joke at all, and it can punish your enemies pretty hard if they don't play around it, essentially making him a potential 3-shot carry during his overwatch. 1 shot being from overwatch, 1 from his passive, and 1 more from Final Vengeance. As you can see, Certus is unfortunately power crept and outclassed in almost every way by others. The damage, the mobility, the survivability, all of that makes him a pretty bad investment. Well, maybe he'll be a good investment for legendary release events then. Well, to no surprise at all to all of you who watched my latest Canticus of Tacticus video, linked in the corner of the screen right now, he won't be that good of an investment. He does tick a few boxes like one hit, physical, bolter, but that doesn't mean that it's worth to invest into him just for them. All of those can be easily covered by other characters. The only way for Certus to be an option to consider for legendary release events right now is if we get Infiltrate or heavy round damage type restrictions, which he would cover pretty well right now, but the other characters that meet those requirements would be a better investment anyway. So yeah, I'm sorry Certus enjoyers out there, but there doesn't seem to be a way for Certus to be usable in any way. Or is there a way? There must be a way. Before we proceed any further, please let me inform you that this build that we'll be showcasing is a meme cheese combo instead of a meta breaker. I repeat, this section of the video is a cheesy meme, not a valid build for PvP. Now, let's go back into the topic. What if Certus wasn't actually made to attack, but instead he was made to protect? What if he is not an eliminator, but an anti-eliminator that serves as a cover for his team? What if he isn't a sniper, but a brave frontliner that will make sure to protect everyone? Impossible, you say? Oh, my sweet summer child, let me show you. Combining Certus with some of the Tacticus roster can provide us with an unstoppable tank Juggernaut unit that will be able to withstand every threat on the battlefield. First, to understand the power hidden behind Certus, we must look into his hidden tank stat, which is his passive. As it is described in the tooltip, his passive is all about reducing hits, resulting in reducing damage done. Well, now we just need to combo this with others to get the engine running. Exodia piece number 1. Certus, the heart of the build, the total gigachad, that is the third character that you unlock in the game. The OG sniper that your girlfriend says to not to worry about. Your mom's friend's son. Exodia piece number 2. Sibyl, to reduce the damage done even further, since her passive will give us yet another 500 damage reduction, resulting in 1000 damage reduction on Certus when his passive works. Exodia piece number 3. Isabella, to heal up any of the leftover damage done to our golden boy. Her passive healing 1200 damage per attack means that we will be able to have both Certus and Sibyl survive way more threats. Also, any damage left over that would not be healed would also be healed by Isabella's basic attack by her auto attack, so that's a bonus. Also, if any of our first 2 Exodia pieces die, she'll be able to revive them once. Exodia piece number 4. Tyrant Guard, to provide us with big target ranged hit reduction, resulting in turning on Certus passive on ranged attacks, and a % damage reduction, resulting in giving us 33% reduced damage taken, kept at 2000 damage per hit. That's a lot of damage being mitigated right there. Exodia piece number 5. There aren't really many great contenders for this slot yet in the game, but if we want super cheese, then we should try adding Jane Zar to the mix, who has the job of reducing the enemy melee hits by 1 and their melee damage done by another 800 damage. It is just all adding up, isn't it? So, in order to understand how this will work, I need you to understand how the damage against our almighty Certus tank will be calculated in-game. Right now, huge thanks to Trenton and Sir Eldrick for providing me with help according those calculations and understanding the Exodia build mathematically. First of all, we have the damage stat on the enemy, which could be affected by buffs or terrain. Once he attacks us, the damage stat will be reduced by Sibyl passive and Certus passive if the target suffers reduced hits done. Then, it gets compared to Damvar, which is basically an armor versus pierce calculation. After this is done, Tyrant Guard kicks in with his damage reduction. But the crazy part here is that it takes the base damage as the value to reduce, meaning that if a 1500 damage attack hits Certus, Tyrant Guard will reduce the damage by around 500. which in combination with Certus and Feeble passives makes it do basically no damage at all. Overall, the maximum damage reduction that we can get per hit is about 3000, while also having a 12,000 heal distributed to Certus after he gets attacked. In summary, for ranged combat, the damage threshold that Certus can out-heal is basically anything over 4200 damage when attacked by a character with 2 or more ranged hits, or 3700 damage for a single hit character. Anything over that will chip away our glorious tank's health bar, though it will take some serious commitment to kill Certus at ranged combat with this build. For melee combat, the threshold is 3700 damage for enemies attacking in melee when not next to Janezar, 4400 for enemies attacking in melee next to Janezar, who actually only have one hit anyway, and 4900 for enemies attacking in melee next to Janezar who have 2 or more hits in melee, since this will turn on Certus passive. What this setup means for PvE for our boy Certus is basically a god mode if he manages to position correctly. While I don't expect this combo to be amazing for any game mode, I think that it actually may be a fun cheese build in game modes where you fight the AI, since it won't abuse the synergies that well and will do less damage overall because of that. Also, it is quite easy to manipulate the game's AI anyway. Or it could be used as a fun build in Tournament Arena to try out on casual mode, for example, especially since it has some flaws to it and needs to be picked in certain situations. This kind of build isn't universally good like Ragnar teams or like Elgion multi-hitters. This one has some uses that resemble memes more than solid playstyles anyway, so from my playtesting it seems like the build was able to do especially well against ranged enemies with 2 or more hits, single hitters not getting their numbers of attacks reduced, and overall having huge damage numbers when our limits aren't that high, well, heavily increased the damage done to Certus, while anyone with 2 or more hits gets hit by the damage reductions pretty hard and cannot outdamage Isabella's passive most of the time. When I tested out the build against Maugan Ra, it was pretty funny to see a Diamond 3 Maugan Ra do 6 damage with his attack, but overall I have to say, single hit characters were the biggest threat to the build, and actually were the only ones being able to outdamage our defensive buffs and Isabella's healing. The more hits a character had, the less likely it was able to outdamage our setup. However, things went out of control when we started using competitive Tournament Arena teams like Ragnar, Eitana, Kalgar with Elgion as additional support, since the damage numbers skyrocketed beyond our 3000 damage reduction limit. What we can learn from that is that this team should mostly be used against AI or in a less sweaty PvP environment. Or it could be used as a discount turtle for Imperial plus Xenos track of max 3 hits in future legendary release events. You see, each of our characters is an Imperial or Xenos, and each of them has either 1, 2 or 3 hits, meaning that they can all fit this requirement. Add in the fact that Chaos enemies overall seem to be good matchups for our build, and well, here we are, climbing the legendary release event like no one else in this single imaginary track. My god, Certus really needs buffs if I need that much copium to make him sound fun. Dear Snowprint, on behalf of me and the Tacticus community, especially Vorenus 40k, please consider buffing Certus. You can make him a deadly sniper or embrace this potential meme build, but he truly needs some love to let us not feel bad about upgrading him for the Indomitus and Indomitus Elite campaigns. That's it for the video, folks. Last 2 weeks have been hard on me with my work, and upcoming 2 ones won't be easier than that, unfortunately. While my upload schedule may not be consistent, I have some spicy videos planned for you, including an updated turbo guide to Machines of War for our next incursion. I hope that you enjoyed this madness, and I hope that you will look forward to my next projects, and I hope that you remember that the machine is eternal.